Okay. Thanks, Miran. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to our third speaker series for 2023. And for those of you who don't know who we are, 51 Invest is an initiative of 51 Labs. We facilitate efficient deal making and matchmaking opportunities while trying to help entrepreneurs access capital. Every month we have this webinar as part of our speaker series, and it's designed to increase awareness of the different types of investors and investments. We invite regional, international, and local investors to talk about their knowledge and experience in investing. And we also invite Iraqi and regional founders to discuss their success stories. This month's exciting session will look into Midient, which was previously known as Kurdivia, latest investment deal. We are also pleased to have with us Flat6Labs, a regional accelerator, which invested $115,000 into Midient. This is Flat6Labs' first investment in Iraq. During our panel discussion, we will look into Midient's startup and fundraising journey and Flat6Labs' interest in Iraq. At the end, we're going to leave 15 minutes for Q&A. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn so you learn more about our work and about our webinars. And also, the session is going to be streamed live on Facebook. I'm going to leave it for the panelists to take it from here. Fawzi Rahal, please can you introduce yourself and tell us about Flat6Labs?
Thank you, Azza. Hello, everyone. As Azza said, we're Flat6Labs, who's an investor in this region. We are a seed stage and early stage investor. We're a network of investors, actually. We're present in 7 countries around the Middle East. We're present in Lebanon, Jordan, UAE, KSA, Egypt, Tunis, and Bahrain. The method by which we invest is that, or the ticket sizes, or the stages at which we invest are actually 4. So we invest at the seed program level, something that's commonly known as the accelerator level, with an investment that is around 100 and as you said, 115K in exchange for up to 10% equity. That's the initial stage of investments that we do. This requires, of course, us to invite the founder into a program that allows us to make sure that the founders themselves are going through the right journey in the fastest way possible, taking them through understanding their product, their market, a little bit of their growth plans, and helping them get additional investment towards the end of the program itself. We also provide the founders at the seed stage with a follow-on ticket that's slightly larger, around 150,000 JDs. This allows them, and only if they manage to, of course, secure external investment, it allows them to double their chances of success at a second stage and gets them ready for a pre-series A ticket. We also invest directly without a program or accelerator at what we call a pre-series A stage. This is for startups that are slightly later than what is known as a seed stage. They're about to establish product market fit, and they would require a range of about 250,000 in terms of investment, and that's where we come in. We also provide a follow-on ticket for that direct investment in case they do secure additional investments. So we invest in startups at early stages at 4 different levels, I would say, and our objectives is to help them not only just identify what their real market is, but to help them grow and scale beyond markets. Which brings me to the fact that today, Fawzi, who's in charge of the Lebanon office, is with you on a call for an investment that took place in Iraq out of our Jordan office, which is really something very exciting for us. It's a new initiative that we're doing simply because we're bridging in I would say the footprint or the market access for the Lebanon fund and the Jordan fund, merging it together and expanding our investment access all around the Mashriq so that we would cover the 4 countries of Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq at the same time. Also allowing the companies to grow and scale across these markets as well. We can talk about that in details later. Yaman, your turn.
Yeah. My name, Awashi. Thank you, 51 Invest and 51 Labs for hosting us. My name is Yaman Alaryan. I'm the Senior Program Officer at Flat6Labs Amman. Mainly my experience is, let's say, more than 5 years in operating accelerators and VC programs in Jordan and Saudi Arabia, since I as a freelancer, I operated Misk Launchpad for Misk Mohammed bin Salman Foundation. I never launched a startup since you told me about the question was, if I have a startup experience. No, I didn't launch one. I worked in two. One of them was in agri-tech and the other one was in edtech. Both of them didn't go well. I have an NGO experience. I launched a local NGO supporting cancer warriors with hair wigs. My first job was in a accelerator of accelerators, where we launched themed accelerators for different industries, starting from agri-tech, then going to ad-tech and health tech. When I left, it was health tech. So this is mainly my experience.
Thank you so much, Yaman, for that. Ahmed, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, guys. I'm Ahmed. Thank you, Fawzi and Yaman, for being here and making time for this webinar. Thank you, Azza, for organizing it. Thank you, 5-1-Labs. I'm really honored to be here today. Personally, I've always loved entrepreneurship and startup. My first startup was when I was 15. I was doing importing electronics from China into Iraq, selling them for like 3-4 times their cost. And but soon it didn't last. I made some profit, but soon the government shut us down because we didn't have any licenses and I was too young to run a business. So that went bust. Then with my current co-founder, we wanted to start late. This is like 5 years later. We wanted to start a health startup, actually, to make bread out of chickpeas. So it's healthy bread for diabetic patients. Both my dad and his dad were both diabetic, and this would help them control their blood sugar levels. We did some tests, we did some MVPs, created some samples, sold them, but the logistics just wouldn't pan out. It wouldn't work out. We did some calculations. It would require a big investment to set up the machinery and the factory in order to reach a level of production that could meet the demand on a daily fresh basis. So we stopped that one. So finally we came on the idea of Kurdivia, which was a live trivia game. It exists in other countries. It didn't exist here. So we thought of, okay, let's translate it, build it from ground up and make it for our market. We did, and it went surprisingly well. I mean, our goal for the first 6 months, for the first 3 months was 500. We reached 20,000 players. And then we reached 50,000, and then 100,000, and then 150,000. We reached 1.5 million downloads, and it was just crazy when it went out of our hand very quickly. I mean, we're not very proud of how we dealt with that app. Kind of messed it up because we never could figure out a good business model for it. We thought of charging businesses instead of charging consumers, because it's not really totally our fault, but it's very hard to charge consumers here in Iraq, especially on a transactional or subscription basis, because there were no, like even last year, there were no digital payment methods that had enough market penetration in Iraq that you could just charge consumers. For example, if we charged everyone $1 per month, that would be $150,000 per month. But how would they send us this $1? There was no, we would have to go to 150,000 houses a month to collect that $1, and it just wouldn't be worth it. So the only way we could do it was to charge businesses. Unfortunately, the business market here in Iraq is not that developed. So asking them to charge for marketing or ads, they would pay tops $100 per month for advertisement, or $200 per month, which is totally not enough to sustain a business model where we were paying the users. You know, we were paying the winners of these live trivia games, and we couldn't sustain it. So at the end, the whole thing collapsed, and we lost the users, we lost the business model, the ad revenue. So we had to restart, and this is kind of like our third startup, which is loyalty. So we asked ourselves and the businesses why they're not paying us for these ads. Why are they not paying more? What's wrong? And they told us it's because we didn't get them the customers into the stores. They want to get and keep their customers, the restaurants, the cafes, the beauty clinics, the swimming pools. They want to get customers, they want to retain them, just like any other business normally. They were just looking for tools, and they were open to new ways. They were open to technology. They just wanted the technology to actually work and give them actionable results and like data on things that are working. So this is how we come up on loyalty. It's a big gap in the Iraqi market. Usually, from our survey, more than 90% of businesses here do not have any loyalty programs. And loyalty programs have been proven worldwide that they increase customer purchase frequency and they do increase revenue because they increase the purchase size per purchase. But businesses here, especially small to medium-sized businesses, which is like most businesses in Iraq are small to medium-sized. You have very few enterprise businesses. They can't get access to this kind of software because they either have to do it physically with cards or they have to develop it with a development company tailored specifically for them, which costs too much money and too much time. So that's why they're not doing it. This is what we got there. So what we're building now is a very easy, affordable, effective loyalty tool that businesses can adopt and start using within 10 minutes. Within the same day they sign up, they onboard, they put their offers, the offer is live and customers are admitted in. Sorry guys, the co-founders are in the other room of the office. This is how this is not really, we didn't really come up with this final product idea immediately. It took some time and we're going to talk about this later in our journey in the rest of.
So entrepreneurship is in your blood, Ahmed.
You can kind of say that, yeah.
Okay.
Fawzi, you're muted. Fawzi, you're muted.
Whoops, I'm talking to myself. I was saying he was selling items for 4 times their price. He's a born shark, not entrepreneur.
Yep.
And from China.
From China.
So Fawzi, tell me, how did you guys hear about Midient?
Actually, he applied. It was very simple. He applied to our platform. We were taking a look at it. We're like, oh, there's a startup from Iraq. We're interested in investing in Iraq. Let's take a look. It was as simple as that, actually. I think he went through the first interview, the second interview. We invited them for the boot camp. The selection committee selected them, and last week he was in Jordan. We were sitting down doing some, meetings and trying to see how else we can help.
Yep.
So this is your first investment in Iraq.
Correct.
Tell me, how did you feel the experience was with Ahmed and vis-a-vis startups that you've worked with in other markets?
I would say when we invest in startups, we mostly look at founders first. And I think at this stage, that's really the most important aspect of being able to select for a startup. The problem that they're solving could get additional challenges in the future. It could be the best thing ever. They might decide that it's not really what it should be the focus, and they might pivot 10 times from now until a couple of years. The most important aspect is what we look for, at least, is their ability to stand up and say, yes, I'm ready to pivot. And their understanding and openness to knowing when it is to stop trying on whatever it is that they're so very well convinced with. And Ahmed's one of those that has just the right balance of all of that, which makes them a perfect candidate to receive investment from us. It was really that, his character and his attitude primarily. And of course, the problem that he's solving got us quite excited. His experience and the problem and the reasons and the research that led him to the problem were also quite exciting. But I would really put it down. I know he's with us today, and it's really not good to flatter him in front of him. But the primary reason I would say is his character and his co-founders' characters and the profiles of the founders themselves.
Yeah, even the chemistry between both of the both of the main founders that we deal with in our one-on-one meetings. They have this great chemistry. They know each other, and they know the power of each other. So at some point, and it was amazing to see that, they said, okay, the one who will be acting as a CEO at this stage will be Muhammad, because Muhammad is a bit technical, and today we are building the product. As they built the product and the product was ready, they decided, okay, so Ahmed is the business guy. Today he's the CEO. He will be taking care of the startup because he's more powerful in terms of business. So the chemistry you don't find it a lot when you're looking at, and they are always ahead. They are always ahead. So they plan how they fail. They are actually ahead of their market. So they know the market might be not ready for what they are building, but they are trying. And at the end of the day, what we really like about them is they are always on beta mode. They are always testing. They listen carefully to their customers, and that is lovely. They listen to their customer and they pivot based on that.
And to answer your question, Yahya, of how would Ahmed and his team or Midient as a startup compare to the rest of the cohort that we have that are based in Amman, I would say character-wise, it seems to be a universal thing, right? So there's really not a lot of difference between a founder who's, I would say, in Africa or in Iraq or in the States, and when it comes to the passion and attitude and synergy that they have with their co-founders. There is a little bit of uniqueness in the market itself, and there's a little bit more of the, I'd say, a specificity of understanding that the team did come with that did also get us excited. At the end of the day, as investors, we're not a one-way, preaching system. We want to learn just as much as we're happy to share our experience. And it's been a very beautiful learning experience working with Ahmed and understanding, the market, particularly in Kurdistan and Idlib.
Picking up on that, so you mentioned that this is your first investment in Iraq. Can you tell me what would motivate you right now to go into the Iraqi market? What are some of the things that grabbed your attention? How do you see the ecosystem evolving there?
I would say I'm already signed up, so I don't need to see a lot more to try to look at the Iraqi market. I think I want to say it's in the perfect space. There's a lot of things that are still needed, just like any other nascent ecosystem needs a lot of, I'd say, entities and people and experience and money and belief and time, right? There are a lot of things that don't happen overnight. But if I would say, is the secret sauce and the actual recipe and the ingredients of those recipe all present? I'd say the majority of them are already established in Iraq. Somehow it seems to be the year, right? Everybody's looking at Iraq this year as a very interesting investment market. The population size of Iraq and the purchase power of the Iraqis, of course, makes it a very interesting market for investors to come in and for startups to also either build businesses or look at ways to also enter that market. That's from one side. I would say the market itself is quite reminiscent of a nascent market. So there's a lot of expertise that is missing. The age group, the majority age of youth in Iraq from one side has its amazing advantages of energy and passion and drive, but it also comes with a lot of, I'd say, slightly lack of focus, simply because everybody wants to try to do as much as they can. And a little bit, I would say, of a lack of expertise, particularly in senior positions or in things that haven't been done enough times, right? Particularly for later stage startups and advanced startups. This is where I would say investors like us are looking to come in and from one side add our value and reap the values and the innovation that is happening on the ground in Iraq at the same time.
Yeah, and coming from a more mature, let's say, market, we saw how things go. We have seen our market being built, so we can actually replicate how we do things, how we did things, and know from the beginning what went wrong, and actually not do it again. So yeah.
So Yaman, Fawzi was talking about that there was a few ingredients that are missing in the market. What do you think those ingredients are? What are the gaps that need to be, addressed?
Yeah, and there is a lot to be addressed, but mainly, I think that the first one I would think of is the mindset. So in Iraq, you will be facing this challenge of changing the mindset of people and turning them into trusting actually these technologies that is being actually fed into them. So it's mainly this and the infrastructure, especially for online payment. Because for a startup actually to have it easy for them to collect their money, etc., I think an online payment methodology would really help. So the infrastructure mainly.
I would jump in and elaborate a bit more on what mindset also includes, right? Because it's not just the mindset of accepting failure and encouraging entrepreneurship. It's a mindset of the angel investors that I will put in money and not take 50% of the company. It's the mindset of the founders that my company that was built 6 months ago is not worth $10 million. It's the mindset of a lot of these stakeholders that need to, from one side, have a little bit of humility and groundedness and understanding that we don't start at the top, we have to start from the bottom. There are some things that can be made at the high level and they need to trickle down, i.e. policy, i.e. infrastructure, i.e. lots, payment methods, etc. But there are a lot of things that need to be built from the ground up, starting with mindsets, right? Being able to understand that, this is, if I am going to be someone who's an investor in a business that is built on tech or that is entrepreneurial in essence, then I'm not here to be a silent partner taking half of the company. And that if I have struggled for the past 3 years or 10 years as a founder in a market that was closed, and I have a lot of history and baggage and I'm not going to say sadness, but opportunity and actual positivity, it doesn't come with a dollar sign that's 10 figures or that is just unachievable in a way that hinders growth. And again, if I were to look at the mix of those two, a startup like Midient actually fits all of these descriptions and much more, right?
Okay, yeah, exactly. And I agree with you, both from the investor side and from the startup perspective, a lot of maturity is needed right now. You had mentioned that you're seeing a lot of regional investor interest. So are there any other regional investors that you would consider co-investing with? Who do you feel, what countries do you feel are mainly interested in Iraq right now?
So as an investor from outside of Iraq, if I were interested in co-investing, I would probably at first co-invest with an Iraqi investor. Not because I'm entering into Iraq and I need to please people, but it's really because by doing this, I will not only solidify my relationship with the stakeholders in the country, but I will also learn about the shortfalls ahead of time. Just like startups need to understand a little bit more about their market before they're well established there. Our first investment in Iraq doesn't mean that we're going to immediately tomorrow open the floodgates and invest in another 20, right? We're still going to take this in a strategic and I'd say measured way. And we're already in talks with lots of stakeholders within Iraq to try to see what are the opportunities and candidates that would be open for co-investments. Now, would we be open as Flat6Labs, or are the international or regional investors open into co-investing together in Iraq? I think this has happened historically. I think Toters has been on the news quite a lot lately as an example, as a big example of Iraqi and non-Iraqi VCs and individuals betting in on that business, and I think more and more of that will happen, particularly around the Mashriq area. I think whether we like it or not, these regions are becoming much more similar to each other, and that requires us to not just treat them similarly, but also try to see how we can maximize on putting them together so that the sum is bigger than the total parts, right? So if we're talking about having a company that's in Iraq that has potential of expanding in Lebanon today, I don't think it's that easy for them to do so. We need to also look at it from the other way and try to see how can we also help the Iraqi companies grow abroad, similar to how we can come in internationally and support the Iraqi companies in Iraq, or come in internationally and invest in a non-Iraqi company and bring them into Iraq. I think all three of these are as important to look at, and I think slowly in time, give it a couple of years, you're going to stress. I think if we're still talking, or if we have another call in 3 to 4 years, we would have dozens, if not more, of investments that have taken place from abroad into Iraq.
Thank you, Fawzi. Ahmed, so the concept of loyalty programs, or at least having one centralized loyalty program, seems to be a bit new for Iraq. So could you explain to the audience, what do we mean by that? And what is your startup's unique value proposition?
Sure. So, when you pivot, which is kind of like starting a new startup, you do your research and you try to see what value proposition exists outside that might have already been done or have not been done that you want to do. So you have to be clear on what exactly you're going to provide as a service, because at the end of the day, you're going to ask for money from these customers. So you need to provide them even more value than the money you're providing and then the money you're asking for. So for loyalty, we did a lot of research, and I mean, actually, we're not researching loyalty. We were researching ways we can help businesses get and retain customers, businesses here. So we actually want, because we knew that in order for them to pay us, we need to provide value. And we were thinking of, okay, what kind of value can we provide? And in our research, we found that loyalty programs actually work very, very well abroad, and they don't exist here. And that's a gap that we thought we could fill. So I will lead with an example that will make things clearer. Starbucks has a huge international loyalty program. They have an app that you download, and if you order through their app, for every 5 or 6 coffees that you order, your 7th or 6th one will be free. So every week you get a free coffee, basically. If you order every day, then one day you have free coffee. So you collect points by ordering through the app, and you'll redeem those points to get coffee, sweets, or whatever you want from Starbucks. And they did a lot of research on this and spent millions of dollars on it. It brought them billions of dollars back. So right now it's one of the largest loyalty programs in the world. Costa also replicated it and has one. McDonald's has one. Adidas, Amazon has Prime, which is a kind of a subscription-based loyalty program. Almost all kinds of brands around the world have a system that gives you rewards for buying stuff from them. And then that reward could be exclusive items, it could be cash back. So for every $100 you spend, you get $10 back, or it could be free items. And it has these different, it could be discounts, like booking.com, the famous booking website, gives you, like, if after 5 or 10 bookings, you get special discounts on your next bookings because you've been a good customer. And that's the idea, basically. The human psychology works this way. We humans love gifts. We love free stuff. Even rich people, and this has been proven and been tested on them, even rich people, when their reward systems in their brain light up when they get a gift or when they get free stuff. It's not in their hands, it's a biological programming. So this is the kind of education and service we wanted to bring here into Iraq, digitize it, make it as easy and effective as possible, and then present it to the business owners. And that's why we started with restaurant and cafe industry, because this is the easiest market for us to penetrate. And the business owners of restaurants and cafes are always in a lot of competition. Iraqi people love food. They love restaurants. They love cafes. They're always full. I mean, in Erbil, any cafe or restaurant you go to, it's always filled, especially at night. So we're like, okay, this is a hot industry. It's a lot of money is being invested. Like, look at Talabat, look at Totos, Lezu. All these players are all working in this industry, and owners are getting exposed to apps and software and technology, like through the delivery portals, through they're constantly in competition. So they do ads and they get marketing agency. So they're in this mindset that's ready to receive something new. And that's why we chose this industry. And we had a lot of experience from our previous startup working with them. So we went to them and pitched them like, hey, do you want to retain your customers? Do you want to make them satisfied? Do you want to make them happy? Do you want to make them come back 4 times instead of 2 times? They're like, yeah, we do. We want that. How can we do that? And we're like, well, there's this thing, in the world that people use called loyalty. Encourages is dulsozi. And you give a gift. You actually give something to the customer first. And that customer in return gives you back the more purchase, more money, and more loyalty. And they're like, okay, it sounds interesting. And that's how we started. That's how we introduced the idea.
So from what you just told me now, it seems like there is an appetite from vendors or restaurants to work with you. What were some of the challenges you faced with onboarding your customers? And can you tell us about these challenges? How did you address them? How did you overcome them?
Sure. The main challenge is what Yaman mentioned, actually. It's the trust issue. So the system is new, as I said. And even though they have had exposure with it through loyalty cards, so a lot of restaurants or car washes or cafes here in Iraq have tried at least once in their lifetime to printed loyalty cards and given out to customers, but they all abandoned it because they didn't get data back on it. They didn't know if it worked or not. The cashiers wouldn't give it out, even if the owner repeatedly told them to do it, because it's extra work and they didn't want to do it. The customers would lose the card. So there was a lot of problems with it. And so they just abandoned it. So they had an idea of what it was, but they just abandoned it and it didn't work. So now the challenge was to show them, okay, here's a digital way to do it. It solves those problems of why it didn't work, and we're going to give it to you for free. So we de-risked it for them, because we know that it's something new that they have to try. They have to give something up front, a promise of a free gift, a free meal, a free coffee. So in order to tell them that, hey, this is going to have a return, trust me. Yes, you're going to give out a few free meals at first, but it's going to pay back as people come back again and again. We're like, okay, you know what? We're not going to charge you. We're going to use Flat6Labs funding to fund the company instead of your revenue. And try it, see what you think. We're going to show you the data, because we have the data of how many customers are going and how many times they're going back and how much they're spending. And we're going to prove to you that this works. So that de-risked it a lot for being able, and this is only possible when you have funding, to be able to give your software for free to vendors to try, and then improving the product while they're trying it for free until a point where they're like, okay, I'm ready to pay. This product is really working and it's worth paying for. And then that's when you make the revenue and you keep it.
Great. So I know before you applied to Flat6Labs, you had been working on fundraising and, reaching out to investors from different regions. Can you tell us about this journey? What were some of the obstacles you faced, and how did you get to know about Flat6Labs, and why did you decide to apply to their accelerator program?
So it took me 8 months to raise this round. It was one of the most difficult things. Actually, it was the most difficult thing to do in our startup. We were facing many challenges. We're working day and night trying to make the startup work, and on top of that, getting someone to see that effort and see the opportunities that you see, and for them to invest is such a difficult journey worldwide, especially in a market like Iraq, where there's a lot of risk, very little investors, and they tend to invest in later stage startups rather than pre-seed. So for us, it was a very difficult process, and it was definitely a full-time job. We are 4 co-founders, and I said, okay, guys, for next few months, my full-time job at the startup is going to be fundraising. So I'm going to be spending all of my time at the office, sending out emails, applying to programs, filling applications, doing interviews to try to get this investment. Like Fawzi said, we did get a few offers of give us 50%, we will give you the money you want, and we were just like, this is not the mindset we want. So that's called bad money. So you shouldn't accept that money. And so we were looking for not just the money, but also an investor like Flat6Labs with international experience, with amazing mentors, with good money, which means the money comes with a lot of help, a lot of support, a lot of networking, and a lot of mentorship, which we needed actually. So that's what we were looking for. And I was in FI. I'm an FI Founders Institute graduate, and they recommended Flat6Labs for me. They were like, okay, here's this regional accelerator. Why don't you apply? We've heard that they're interested in Iraq. Maybe they will make an exception for you, even though they're in Jordan. And we were like, you know what? Why not? I'm applying everywhere anyway. So I checked out Flat6Labs. I was like, this is amazing. I need to apply to this ASAP. So I applied, filled the application, provided the documents, and I waited. Went through the interviews, and they were like, you know what? We're going to make an exception, and we're going to invest, even though you're in Iraq and we're in Jordan. And that was just amazing news for us. One of my co-founders, as soon as we got the news that we were going to get the investment, he dropped out of college. I was like, college is not worth it. I'm going to focus full time on the startup. It's way better. So yeah, we're full in with the investment and the startup.
Although we don't push people to drop out of college.
Actually, I'm here to say, don't drop out of college.
Disclaimer.
It was his decision. It was his decision. He said this is for his best, and he wanted to do this. So, no one.
It may not be for you. It was his decision alone.
To be honest, I did tell him not to do it. So.
يا الله أحمد. طيب, what are some advice that you would give to entrepreneurs who are looking to raise investments? What are things that they need to look out for? And also, maybe can you give us a small idea of how it was talking to Iraqi investors?
So my advice would be to avoid Iraqi investors for now. As Fawzi said, they're not really in the right mindset currently.
I did not say that. I said they could be in a better mindset. There are lots of investors that are doing really well.
That's my advice personally. I'm not gonna say don't generalize this. It's just what I think. Go for international investors as much as you can, and you might. I mean, it took me 8 months, and I probably sent like 100 emails to many different people. I took many meetings. I was reaching out to people, cold reach out where you just send people messages. I was doing warm, like trying to getting people to introduce me to other people. It was a long process, but if you keep at it, and that's the key point. And I think that's a principle for everything in life. If you keep at it, if you don't give up, if you're like consistent on it, you are gonna find someone like Yaman and Fawzi, like Flat6Labs, where they're gonna take that leap, we're gonna take that risk, and they're gonna say, you know what, this sounds interesting, let's do it. So even though some of those investors on their website, they don't have Iraq included in the market that they're interested in, you might be surprised. Don't skip any opportunity to apply everywhere. Basically apply everywhere. Everywhere internationally, any accelerator, any seed funds, any fund VCs, anyone you see, apply, pitch them your idea, improve with the feedback that you get, and you're gonna get that investment.
And also, as you mentioned, it's a full-time job, fundraising.
It is definitely, you can't, I mean, it's very difficult to do your startup at the same time while fundraising, because you need so much focus on the fundraising as well. It took me 4 months to perfect my pitch. Pitch deck is like the presentation you do for investors, to perfect the presentation and to perfect the value proposition and the problem. And it's even more difficult when you're in the middle of a pivot. Like what I pitched to Flat6Labs and got accepted with was my previous startup, and what I'm doing right now is very different. And just by the way, they were very cool with the pivot. And I think that's really important, because startups are like, it's very difficult for a startup to come up with an idea and become $1 billion based on that idea. Most of the time, probably 90% of the time, there are pivots involved, and that's natural. It's just, as Fawzi said, the founder has to have the capability of pivoting, because it's pivoting your mindset, it's pivoting your dreams, it's pivoting the team's energy and synergy and vision and direction. There's a lot of moving parts. So yeah, that's what I think. What kind
of feedback were you getting from the Iraqi investors when the investments were being declined? Were you getting any feedback?
Yeah. So okay, so there are only 4 actual legit VCs and investors in Iraq, and there's IVP, there's Euphrates, there's MS Novo, there's I think there's one more. There's only 4 in all of Iraq. Oh, there's also 51Labs that does smaller. They have some ignites that are smaller, like $10,000, $20,000 investments, and there's Orange Corners that does $40,000 investments. That's it. So those are all the ones in all of Iraq for 42 million population. So we would be pitching to these, and they would say, for example, Euphrates had a lot of feedback for us, and they were committed to help us even though they didn't invest. And they were telling us, like Rawas especially was giving us direct feedback. Like I would do calls with him or meet with him in Erbil, and I would pitch to him the idea, and they would say, you know, as investor, this is would be the weak side, or this is how you should. For example, for the trivia gaming, they were like gaming startups themselves. Games are depreciating assets; they die over time. Like, what kind of mobile game would you keep in your phone for 10 years and you still keep playing it? It's not like Talabat or Uber where you keep using it. So that's the kind of feedback we received from them that made us go more towards B2B, and I think that's very useful.
I mean, one of the points that I was making was that sometimes it's helpful, even if you get declined, just to get some feedback. Even if you don't get feedback that you're hearing, it kind of gives you an idea of whether you're even targeting the right investors to begin with, or whether what you're doing could actually be enhanced or not. One small thing I will also add is usually sometimes the profile of the actual people working for the investor are quite important depending on what you're pitching. So I would advise people to research the actual individuals that work for the fund and try to see what their background is and whether there would be people that would be interested to listen to what I have to offer or not.
True. Ahmed, can you tell me, how are you going to use the money? What are your plans? What are your growth plans and next steps?
Go to Europe, buy cars, and vacation. I'm just kidding. So it's very important for everyone to know that the funding you receive for your startup is actually not owned by you. The money is owned by the company. So it can only be used for the startup's purposes and startup's work. The only money you can get as a founder is as a salary accepted by the investor, or as when the company exits, when you sell the company, and then the shareholders, which you are one of, get the money gets distributed over them. That's the only way you can get the money. So the money in how we're going to use this money first, which again, something very important that investors understand, and Flat6Labs understands this very well. Right now, we're using it for experiments. We're using it to do tests on the market, on the vendors, see if this is the product to go with. Like, even though we have this vision and this qana'a that this is the way to go and this is the gap that we've identified, we actually have to validate it in the market. And this is something very important for those who are hearing this and want to do their startup. You have to validate your idea by testing it in the real world, see if it's going to work or not. So we have chosen a few restaurants and cafes that we're giving this product free to, but we've asked them to give us actual data and revenue data, sensitive data that they would normally not give out, in order to make sure that the app is working for them and that they would convert to paying customers in the future. So that's what we're currently using it for. Once we get those data in a few months, and let's say the app works, the validation goes well, the customers turn into paying customers. They said, I love it. Then we're going to use the money to expand. So this basically going to be spent on marketing and sales, where you're going to get sales reps, you're going to spend it on digital ads, you're going to spend it on branding, and then doing events and conferences to get those business owners. And that's basically what is going to happen. Of course, at the same time, in parallel, you always have product development. We're going to be adding features, testing it, adding more features, and then so on and so forth.
So your current market is Erbil?
We're currently testing it in Erbil and Sulaimania, so only in 2 cities.
And then once you validate, which other markets are you going to enter?
The next obvious market, which any startup would do, is Baghdad. It's like 8 million people population. We have already added Arabic and English into the app. All we have to do now is to validate that the product works, to validate its pricing, to validate the different features that would be most beneficial to the restaurants and cafes, and then launch that to all of Iraq.
Okay, great. So we still have 15 minutes left, and I would like to ask the audience to start asking their questions. You can type it in the box here, and whoever is watching on Facebook, you can also type out your questions there, and we'll read them out to the panelists.
If the questions are not flowing in yet, I just want to add something.
Please go ahead.
Ahmed said, with regards to your question about the spending, a lot of founders come to us, and in their minds, they just need the money, right? It's like, I'm done. I just need this amount, and then I'll be done, right? And that's really never the case. I wish it were the case. If that were the case, then anyone who had money would have a startup today. But we know that that's also not true. And looking onto that, usually investors, even us, don't like to see a huge chunk of the money that we're investing going on as salaries for staff, or as things that could be done in different ways. We believe that the actual founders themselves have the company, which is the most valuable thing. They have shares and access to the shares of the company, and that's really the value that they hold. Any kind of temporary, I'd say, financial remuneration should be minimal, and obviously they should take salaries. They should be able to go and come back and buy clothes and eat and survive, because their survival is critical to the existence of the company. But splurging and spending the funds on salaries is not really that exciting for us, because it doesn't really take you places. Similar to coming in and saying, I'm going to spend my entire budget on marketing. That's also not something that we encourage. You need to have some sort of a strategic way by which you understand what it is that you're going to get out of it. And in Ahmed's case, it was as simple as validating their product.
The questions have started coming in. Randy, the founder of Shopify, is saying, this was amazing, Ahmed. How do you pitch the validation of market research? Usually investors look at revenue because we are in the same path.
Actually, that's a very good question because that's the first thing investors ask anyway. So I think there are two types or categories of validation that you can show to the investor. One of them is the most common one, and it's what most investors are used to. The second one is less common and probably less investors would be excited about. The first type of validation is actual kind of traction that you can show. Like in our case for Kurdivia, we were saying, oh, we have a 1.5 million downloads, 100,000 daily active players. This is what you did, what we were capable of reaching, and that itself is some kind of validation. And then they would ask about, okay, what about your revenue? Or our revenue is this, and we've been able to do this and that. So usually the largest number goes, like the largest so not fake numbers, like we got 1 million clicks. 1 million clicks in what? Like did one user click 1 million times, or do you have 100,000 people who click 10 times? So it's like you have to know what kind of validation you're showing. But this category is the validation of numbers. Basically, you either show revenue or traction, or even, by the way, there's another number which is called retention or engagement, where you only have 100 users, but they're using your app every single day for 10 hours a day, or for like 5 hours a day, or they're opening your app every day, or they're ordering on your app if you're like a shopping app. They're ordering through your app every day or every week, and that 100 people have never left your app. That's a very good validation. Yes, you're only able to get 100 people, but they love your product and they're using it every day. So that probably means that if you get funding, you can get more customers who would then also will love your product, and you can expand from there. So anyway, there are a different type of numbers, or KPIs, they're called key performance indicators, that indicate your performance to the investor, and that's one category. I think the other category that's less exciting, but might work with some investors, is your team's validation. And this is something Fawzi also touched upon. It's showing the methodology that you get. Like I can even say to the investor, hey, my previous startup failed, it didn't work out. This is my new startup and this is my new idea. But this is how I went through my previous startup. This is the methodologies I did. These are the tests I did. This is the data I collected. This is how many experiments I ran. And this is how many different features I tested. And with this startup, this is what I think I could do. And this is how many tests I can run. And so this, if you can show clearly your methodology and your path of what you did, what you've learned, and there are languages for this in the investor world, in the startup ecosystem, like lean startup, or the cold start problem, or network effects, or viral loops. And when you learn these kind of things and you know how to actually test them, experiment them, and apply them, then the investor is going to say, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's startup material. And even though his previous startup didn't work, or right now he doesn't have a traction, it's just an idea, it seems that he can make this idea real, or he can at least experiment it and validate it. So those are the two kind of ways that you can show to the investor what you're doing.
So this question is, I guess, for everyone, and it's, what is the best advice for startups in the beginning of their journey?
Actually, I think before going to the second one, how about we get an investor's perspective on the first question of validation? Do you think that would be?
Oh yeah, Fawzi.
I think Ahmed answered it really well. I think validation comes in many ways. At the end of the day, what you're really looking to validate is the fit between your product and market, right? We call it a product market fit. If you have any other method by which you can prove to the investor that the product that you've built is actually designed for the market that you're intending to design it for, and that market is huge, you've solved half the problem, more or less. You can be as creative as you like. There are no rules as to what works and what doesn't. Of course, as Ahmed said, we love to look at real numbers and we don't like assumptions. So if you're coming to us with 3 slides of projections, we're using any sort of method, we're probably not even going to look at it, because what we really want is the story part, the learning part, and what is it that you're going to plan to do to get to where you want. And I would loop that in also to the next question, which is, what is the best advice for startups in beginning their journey? And say, also very similar, the first thing that I would need to do if I'm beginning my journey is I would write down every single assumption that I have, every single one. My customers are going to pay this much. My product will do this. This is the problem that I'm solving. Anything that is not reality and facts is what I would call an assumption. I would write down every assumption that I have, and I would find a way to validate or invalidate that assumption. This way, I would go to the investor and say, this is what I think. This is why it's correct. That's what I'm going to do now.
I would add to that is actually knowing where you are at. It's really important, especially when you're dealing with investors and customers. So sometimes vision is a bit tricky. So your vision is to become an AI powered with blockchain startup that is 100 billion valuation. That's your vision. So that's where you want to be, but that's not you right now. So the way you deal with your investor, the way you deal with your customer is based on where are you at now. So you can bluff everyone, but you can't bluff yourself. And high valuation on your first round is a bit is not healthy. You will face it will be challenging for you to raise after that if you have a really high valuation on your first rounds, and not be a perfectionist. So at the end of the day, if you're launching something that is functional, it shouldn't be pretty. If you are actually selling designs or something, or you're a design platform, it should be pretty. Otherwise, if it's functional, if it do the main function that solves the actual problem you're trying to solve, then it's good to go to customers, because whatever you're building now, you will actually take it and put it into trash, and you will be building something new based on the customer's feedback. So the earliest you get the customer feedback is the earliest you will be able to actually change your product based on that and pivot into something that the customers wants to pay for. So yeah.
If I may add to Yaman's last advice, which I think is that this is really great way to summarize this, as YC says, this is a quote from YC. They say, imagine you're in a room with a guy and his head is on fire. Okay, so his hair is on fire. And then you're sitting there and he says, think about what can you provide to this person? Like, if this is the need, his hair is on fire is currently his problem. What solution can you provide to this person? Obviously, it's going to be a bucket. It's going to be a bucket of water. So the thing he's going to need the most is a bucket of water that you're going to give, and he's going to use it to shut down the fire. But even if you give him a brick, this is your product. Your solution is a brick. So it's not beautiful. It's not really the solution, but it's a brick. He's going to use that brick and hit himself with it just to turn off the fire, because the fire is so painful. He's going to use anything to get the fire away from himself. So that's the kind of way you should think of the need of your customers. You have to find that fire and then only target that fire. What's this burning need that the customer has? And you should only target, or should be able, or you should only have the intention or the vision to meet that need for the customer.
And I think Yaman's point is, if it's an ugly bucket or a good looking bucket, it's a bucket.
Please do not use a brick on your head.
I think we're going to come up with a lot of disclaimers towards the end of this. Don't quick call it.
Don't use brick.
So somebody's asking, what sectors is Flat6Labs interested in investing in Iraq?
So we are sector agnostic. We invest in all industries as long as there is tech at the core of the businesses.
Yeah, but what we mainly invest in software. So we rarely invest in hardware as well. Yeah, at least, yeah, I think we.
This question is for Ahmed. How did Founder Institute change your business?
I think it was more that it prepared me for Flat6Labs. So Founders Institute, their 3-month program is that they prepare you for an investment. So they taught me what's a pitch deck, how to make a pitch deck, how to present the pitch deck. And we would have a pitch night every week where we would pitch to mentors, and then they would give us feedback, world-class international mentors that would come up live on Zoom, and we would present the startup to them. They would say, I see this problem with your competitor slide. Oh, your value proposition is not clear. The product, I don't understand how the product works. Can you elaborate more on how that works? So they would improve my presentation and pitch. So by the time I applied to Flat6Labs and went through the interviews, I was ready. I had that training, so I could be clear on what we're solving, how we're solving it, what's the market size, and I would understand the questions that they're asking me, and I would know the answers, and I would be prepared. And I think that kind of preparation is really important.
So a question for Flat6Labs. What would make you consider another round of investment with Kurdivia? Also, are you taking part in decisions taken to run the startup?
So yes, we would consider another round, simply because we are investors that invest in multiple rounds. And if Kurdivia does receive an offer for investment in the near future, they know that we're going to be happy to provide them with a matching offer as well. So the answer is yes. With regards to what kind of decisions do we take in the business, we actually take none. We take an advisory role. We do take a board seat, but we are strong believers that the founders, the co-founders of the company are the people who are designed to run the business. We're in the business of building businesses, not in the business of running businesses. And therefore, I mean, you have Ahmed here to tell you whether we take any decisions or not, but it's up to him.
It's true. It's true, guys. They don't meddle with your business. They give you a lot of amazing advice, and I think that's really important. But and I think it's important that they don't make decisions on your behalf, because they're dealing with so many startups, and each one is in a different industry and in a different sector, and each one is in a different phase of their business. So it's going to be really difficult, almost impossible for them to meddle with the decision making of all those businesses. So their advisory position is actually very good. So you just bounce off ideas of them, discuss problems with them, and they give you amazing advice. And I think that's actually worth much more than even the money that they're investing.
So we still have 1 minute left. There's one question which I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. What is the ideal exit?
I think exit. I think exit is the word that we're looking for or expect, and I think that's less related to a particular startup, Midient or otherwise, and it's more on a high level. I want to highlight first that the thing that we expect is not necessarily an exit. We expect that a lot of our companies are going to fail. That's part of expectations as well. So there's a lot of expectations that we have as investors. And the majority of startups fail. And this is real life. We expect a lot of lessons to be learned from these failures. We expect a lot of jobs to be created from the investments that we make. We expect a lot of ecosystem players to actually get excited about the entire environment. And we expect that this funding that we're putting in will lead to smarter developers, smarter businessmen, a much more, I'd say, active environment. But if and when we talk about expecting exits, our ideal exit would be an exit where we made a lot of money. That's what we're here for. At the end of the day, we're investors. So I would say 16x is a nice number, but 50x is nicer. 100x is even nicer. I can keep going up, and that kind of makes my point. But if I'm really talking about when is it that someone like Flat6Labs would be ready to exit your company, and I think that could be a better answer to that question. We start looking at exiting your company when the founders own less than half of the company. And I think that also links back to the previous question or answer of we're not in the business of running businesses. When you have a bunch of investors sitting down and they own more, they control the company, that's when we would like to say, does anybody want to buy our shares? We're out. We'd like to we're not at that stage. That's way too intense and advanced and engaged for us. We would like to get out of that and maybe get a few tickets out of that investment and invest again in smaller companies where we know our value is much bigger and we can actually contribute in different ways. And so we're happy to be with you until you guys are no longer the primary operators of your company. And that's when we start looking at trying to exit. That is when you guys as founders are actually also looking for other board members and other stakeholders in your company and other expertise. And that's, I believe, would be the sweet spot for us.
Thank you so much, Fawzi and Yaman and Ahmed. I loved this session. I'm so happy to have you with us, and I'm sure the audience had a great time, very fruitful.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Alza. Thank you, guys.
Hope to have you again when the second round is raised.
Definitely. Yeah, we're excited.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Alza.
Thank you. You take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, guys. See you.